Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the round table for our final round table for season 2 of Doctor Who, this year's season. For the Reality War, the feature-length finale, the second parts, the final episode, the big regeneration story for the 15th Doctor. So much to discuss. We have actually already discussed the final 10 seconds of the story in a separate round table. Thanks for all the love on that. It's been great to see. So go and check that out if you haven't already. But yeah, today we're discussing the other 64 minutes or whatever it was that came beforehand. So obviously I should say I've got Joe and Miles and Pete at the moment. Josh might be materialising, we don't know. But
he's in the underverse.
He's in the underverse. Well, can we use that joke?
He's in the time hotel. He'll pop out through a door.
A door will open. Exactly. Yeah. A door will open. In summary, my thoughts, I'm not sure I actually said them anywhere on the channel yet. I actually, vibed with this quite a bit, I think. Obviously, as we've discussed already previously, the Billy thing at the end threw me a little bit at the end. But I think, I had a great time. I was watching it in the cinema with Joe and Pete and our friend Dave as well, and that was nice. I realised, actually, Pete, that we have watched both the first and last episodes of this era together, like the 15th Doctor's era, or the first the first and last ones that he appears in, I guess, with a giggle as well. But so that was a nice full circle moment, and it's always better with your mates around you and other fans and the reaction to certain moments.
You're making
as well,
it sound like the first episode of the era was like years and years ago. It was only about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think not quite 18 months is the thing that's been going around. Not quite 18 months, which is crazy. But I think overall with it, there were definitely parts of it which I think, as we discussed with Wishworld as well, kind of felt almost like parody or just kind of very of this era, like with the flashbacks the previous week and a bit this week as well, actually, and kind of slightly goofy moments as well, where I might have laughed or said something out loud, when they happened on the screen. But actually, I thought, you know what, this is it's very of its time, very of the era. It's like Doctor Who trying to do a big Marvel movie kind of thing. I say as someone who's never really watched any Marvel movies, but it felt like the culmination of that kind of objective that they set out to do. And we know that because Russell's talked about that before, his ambitions to kind of be on that level. So all the stuff with Shooty on the Rani's flying vehicle, whatever it is, and all of the visuals, the big battles with the bone beasts and all the lasers. Yeah, that kind of ticked all those boxes. But Miles, I'll go to you because, well, obviously viewers can hear your full thoughts on the Knowing Who podcast, but
yes,
pray see them here.
They can, yeah. I'm in the same camp as you, Richard. I had a good time with it as well. Again, great environment to watch it in, surrounded by fans. I loved the moment where Varith Sethu at the start in her little message said, "So enjoy, we've got 68 minutes," and you could feel a big gasp of people going, "Oh my God, it's a long one now, yay!" Had a great time with it. I know that I'm aware it's not perfect, but I had a really fun time. Similar vein to Power of the Doctor, it was great, sort of fan-pleasing moments, but also had a lot of heart to it. And it was a real shock to see Shooty go, really. It's kind of echoing what you said in the previous video, Richard. It's weird to be like, you want a shock regeneration, but it's now we kind of know that it's a very different thing to be like not knowing that the Doctor's going, as opposed to not knowing who's going to come next, if that makes sense. You obviously worded it better, but yeah. So it was a kind of a weird moment to be going in, not knowing where we'd be ending up. But yeah, no, I had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, and a good time. Now over to Joe and Pete.
Should we work up to it? Should we go Pete first?
Pete, you go first because
there's a scale.
Yeah, 0 to 100.
I find it really difficult to work out what my thoughts are on this episode because as it was going on in the cinema, I was like, "Oh, I'm loving this. I'm loving this. This is amazing. This is really good." Up until about well over halfway, I was into it. Even all the Omega stuff, I thought, "Yeah, I don't mind this. This is all right." Um, it just for me the biggest issue with it was it just got a bit bogged down in all the poppy stuff, and it was just boring. I've watched it back since the episode, and some of those scenes just go on and on and on, and it's like Poppy's vanished. Oh no, she's not. She's here.
It's
She's
quite
vanished
talky,
again.
isn't
She
it?
hasn't.
Yeah, I guess because they're having,
Yeah.
well, as we'll probably get onto with the reshoots and stuff, but they're having to kind of explain what's going on and what's changed, and like, oh, it's not quite what we said before. It's actually this instead, and yeah.
Yeah. But on the whole, enjoyed most of the episode. I thought the way that Ruby's kind of exit was handled wasn't amazing, with the way the Doctor was kind of being quite nasty to her towards the end. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not. I'm not sure if that was kind of if he kind of knew that Poppy wasn't existed or whatever. But I thought the appearance of Jodie was quite cool. She wasn't very happy with the Billy stuff at the end. Well, not. It's not that I wasn't happy with it, but I just think we've had it all before. I think we've had it with Tennant before. We've had every time I look away from the screen and looked back, it was like there's another Doctor pops up. But like we've had Jodie, we've had Joe Martin, we've had David Tennant, we've had Shooty. Every time I look, there's a new Doctor. And I feel like Regeneration was something that definitely as a kid was very, very special. It was kind of an event, and like, I remember crying when Christopher Eccleston regenerated, and I was only 5, but I remember crying when he went because it was such a big thing and it was such a big build up to it, and it kind of makes me think like, obviously the regeneration with this one wasn't maybe as planned as it would have been with previous ones, but the Eccleston regeneration wasn't planned out from the start, and that's still a great story. So that's no excuse for a messy story. But I'm just a bit sick of regenerations. They're all a bit samey, and yeah, not for me, regeneration. But we'll see what happens next.
Cool. And actually, before we go to you, Joe, there is a door opening up from the Time Hotel.
Hey!
Hello.
I was literally just watching
Look at that.
Instagram.
That is meta.
Inception.
It's a very,
It's like
very,
you're bringing out the pyramids of Mars
very
in
topical
Empire of
for
Death on the
this
screen,
season, isn't it? Yeah.
showing us
And
a
also,
flashback.
yeah, I was sat on the floor in the Empire of Death review. I thought it would come full circle. I'm sitting on the floor again.
I
I
didn't
think
realise.
Surrounded by doors as well.
I've
Very
ruined the
appropriate.
mystique now, haven't I?
Yeah. Well, through that door behind you, Josh, is Day of the Daleks, and the other one is the
Exactly,
chess place
exactly.
for
Yeah.
River
These
Song,
these
and
are the
it's all-
Time Hotel doors. There's one over
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
Anita's through there, and she's also holding a door open over there.
Uh-huh.
Did we all have that same reaction, by the way, to that shot when it first showed the shot of Wedding of River Song, and it's the live chess thing? Did everyone like me go, "Oh, isn't that the same? That's the same place that they did that. That's a nice little callback." Until they show a shot of Matt, and it's like, "Oh no, it's literally the
Yeah,
same."
yeah,
shot.
Yeah, I think so. And it's a similar thing actually with when they showed Trenzalore in the Interstellar Song Contest, I think it was, where it's like on a
Oh
screen.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
right.
and it's like in your brain it kind of goes, "Oh, is that the same?" And then obviously we see Matt Smith this time. It's like, "Oh yeah, it's definitely the same, like no question." That was funny, yeah. But
We've
Josh,
been
what did you
asking
think of
for
this
him
one?
back. It happened, kind of.
Well, sort of, yeah.
The thing that stuck out to me when I was at the cinema screening is when Varada did the sort of intro to it and saying, thank you everyone for coming. And she said, get ready for the final episode. And at first, for a second, I was like, no, they've not just outright confirmed that it's ending here. And then she said, no,
God.
final episode of season 2. But for a second, I went into panic mode just before the episode started. That's what stuck out to me. I know, actually, because it was the yeah, I saw it at the View Cinema. I'm not sure where you guys saw it, but
We
it
were
was
View,
like the
yeah.
title card of the, Doctor Who, and then all of the age ratings and warnings and all of that. And then it just cut straight into Wallace and Gromit. And I thought-
Yeah.
the
And I thought-
trailers.
That BBC
This is the
iPlayer
crossover
trailer,
next. That was on my bingo.
And Superman and Lois as well. It
Yeah,
was the
exactly,
weirdest. It was just those
exactly.
3 things: Wallace and Gromit, Doctor Who, and Superman. It was like, sure.
I'll start off softly.
Okay.
Bits I really liked, even though it is Magic Door. Anita's popping up again, really well set up. Nice bit from Christmas. Mrs. Flood didn't appear at Christmas. Yep, that makes sense. She didn't keep trace of that, so she wouldn't have any idea that this would be the way to get out the plot. I quite liked. Oh gosh, what did I like about this? Shooty, absolutely stellar final performance, on top form, no matter what load of junk he's given to talk about. He did absolutely stellar this week. And also, I am going to say, Jodie Whittaker popping up, it was really lovely. It felt like it was deserved. It felt earned. And like everyone in the cinema, when she popped up, that's the one point in the episode where genuinely everyone cheered. Like there was no one going boo or umming and ahhing. It was just absolutely beautiful. But the rest of the episode does not make a lick of sense. It was clearly in two halves. We had got to the 15th Doctor being the Green Goblin, and I was like, right, I'm on board for this. This is fantastic. He crashes through. And then we get to the Omega door. And then that last 30 minutes, it just comes off the rails and just crashes and becomes a different piece of art. And that's my opinion on it. Now on to Josh.
Wow.
You know what?
Where do we go from there, Josh?
I'm glad that Joe liked it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on to the chat, Joe.
Yeah.
He's just thinking of things that I can put in the thumbnail, isn't he? Just
yeah.
Clickbait, that's what I'm here for.
It's strange because I remember around this time last year us talking about Empire of Death and not liking Empire of Death that much. But it didn't make me feel
That's a masterpiece now.
It's a fine bit of art.
It didn't make me feel as kind of deflated as this did. We spoke about the sort of regeneration already.
You felt more deflated this time around. Interesting.
Yes, definitely.
I think I was the opposite.
Because I think that it's so clear that things have not gone to plan, perhaps, or not worked out the way that they'd hoped behind the scenes, and that Shooty's his arc seems incomplete.
Yeah.
And it seems like his tenure has been completely cut short. And I've really loved this season up to this point. And I think it was really deflating to see Shooty go so quickly, because I wish we had more of him. And it's a real shame that he's gone. I wish we had another season with him. That kind of left me kind of cold afterwards. But the episode itself, I kind of echo what Joe's saying. I like all the stuff up to the Doctor crashing into the Bone Castle. I thought that actually him on the sort of Green Goblin like thing was a bit of it was kind of like his Whomobile moment.
Yeah,
like,
very much so.
That was quite nice. But yeah, as soon as Omega comes out and then the Rani gets eaten by Omega, and the whole thing they've been talking about for the majority of the episode about Gallifrey being remade.
Can you imagine, sorry, Josh, someone last year saying the finale for season 2 involves the Rani getting eaten by Omega? Isn't that such a weird, out of context, crazy? Sorry, carry on.
The first half, I sort of got into the groove of going, oh, okay, I can see how this is going to get wrapped up, and it seems like it's going to be quite like with the Anita stuff. It's like, oh, this is all starting to come together and actually seemed quite satisfying, and it was like, oh, this is actually going to pay off, and I was on board with it. But yeah, it took such a random turn, especially with the Poppy stuff. The Poppy moment in the TARDIS with the jacket and that getting folded up numerous times until it becomes smaller and smaller and then just fades into nothingness was perfect. It was absolutely beautiful. I loved that moment.
And I'm guessing that was originally meant to be the end of her story, to be honest.
Yeah, and also it seems weird that the Doctor was so determined to say, no, you're wrong, Ruby. Like, what on earth are you talking about? There is no Poppy. Because you'd think that the Doctor would be like, well, if you say that there is something, then I'm at least curious about it. It seems
it
like
would have been nice.
He knew.
Pulled Belinda aside and was just like, right, Belinda, just stay here for 2 minutes. Right, Ruby, I know this is awful, and I know I'm like talking down to you, but please shut up.
Yeah, so that just seemed a bit weirdly out of character.
He remembers Rory, doesn't it? When Rory dies. and stuff like that. It's been stuff in the past where he's kind of remembered it because he's a time traveler. He's got Archer and energy buzzing around him or whatever the executed this week.
Well, people have pointed out, and it could just be seeing patterns and things that aren't there, but like I think there's a bit in that TARDIS scene afterwards where like he winks at Ruby or something, and people sort of said, oh yeah, like in the original version of the story he definitely knew and he was just gonna like keep it between himself and Ruby. Yeah, I sort of get it like in the following scene where it's, I don't know, did they kind of hammer home a bit too much this thing of him like saying no Ruby, no, you know, but I guess what they're going for there is like a thing of she has to really push him, like to make it feel like such a big kind of moment, like worthy of him sacrificing himself and like of it being a regeneration. Like he has to kind of really be pushed to that point to actually make that decision, which I kind of like the outcome of, or the vibe that they're going for of that, I think. But I guess it's one of those things, isn't it? Like with the reshoots and stuff. Like, this wasn't the original version of it.
There's literally that line at the end of the episode where the Doctor says something along the lines of, you know, it's always going to be tough. Something about missing things that aren't there, but something that could have happened.
But they happened elsewhere or whatever. Because I was looking at it again today and thinking that kind of like sums up the whole thing, doesn't it, with the episode? Yeah.
I don't know what to say, to be honest. I just feel a bit deflated. I feel like I watch Doctor Who now as like a casual viewer. It kind of washes over me, and I enjoy it, but it's not the show I once loved. But it's fine. I mean, as long as other people are enjoying it, that's fine. I've had my era, you know, Eccleston and I suppose Tennant as well, but mainly Eccleston. I'm still watching that one episode a week, 20 years on. I'm Boomtown this week, so I'm still enjoying that, so I can't complain. But I just find some of the decisions a little bit odd. I mean, I know we've done a separate video about the Billy Piper stuff, but that all just seems a little bit odd. And it seems like a lot of things that the show has been doing in the last few years has been to try and be either reactionary or try and have a twist at the end, or try and, you know, that was our twist at the end, wasn't it, Billy Piper? Or try and do something a little bit unusual. I know we've had, you know, the last few years of Timeless Child. We've had all the stuff with Sutek and now all various regenerations back into previous people. So we'll see what happens next. I mean, this could be it. This could be. I'm about to leave the round table now, and you might never see me again. This could be the end of Doctor Who. But I hope it's got a healthy and happy future ahead of it, and I hope, you know, people don't take it too much out on Shooty or Russell or anyone, because working in TV is difficult. You know, Miles works in TV. I've had little TV jobs here and there, and it's I think only when you work when you've been on a TV set, you realise how much blood, sweat, and tears goes into it, and how much things can change on a whim, and how everyone's schedule's got to line up exactly, and how everything's got to work out, and
how things can get missed off, and things can get forgotten.
Yeah, and things don't always work out, and we know from reading the history books that Classic Who wasn't plain sailing all the way through, and obviously even the Eccleston year, which I love, that wasn't plain sailing. So I think history will be kind to it, and even like seeing Jodie pop up in this episode, I'm a lot kinder to her era now than I was 5 years ago. I don't think I've ever sat down and thought I'll rewatch one of them, apart from when I'm doing a marathon. But when I did do a marathon, a lot of them I enjoyed. So history will say its piece on this era of Doctor Who. I think people need to just enjoy it and just don't overthink it too much. He says on a round table. So
it was a privilege watching it with you, Pete. You know,
well, that's what
made it enjoyable for me. It was having my three mates there.
Doctor Who, you know, it's brought us all together. We had such a nice evening watching it in the cinema. I really enjoyed seeing it in the cinema, and I enjoyed the vast majority of the episode. And apart from that Poppy kid, anything with her and any scenes with her, and they can wipe that out. I'm not interested in her. But the majority of it, I love.
You're saying you're not going to try and get her autograph, and
you'll be sat next to her.
Yeah, you literally mark my words. That's going to happen. That's absolutely.
She's a future Doctor Who, by the way.
You've got it on Unleashed. You've got it on a podcast there. But what I was going to say was, you know, like, I'm not bothered about any of that. I'm not bothered about the cancellation stuff. I'm not bothered about what the behind the scenes drama was for Shooty leaving, because a lot of it we don't need to know, in my opinion. But what I would love to know more about, and what I'm really, really fascinated by, is what the script editing process is like on this current era of Who. I want to know how much input other people have had into Russell's scripts, because I get the impression, and I could be completely wrong, that it's quite a different setup from his previous era, and there's less people looking over the scripts, editing them, and there's a lot of things that seem to have kind of slipped through. I mean, there was one line that even in the cinema I thought that's a bit of an odd line, and maybe it makes sense, maybe it's me that's wrong, but there was a line where Mel rocks in and she's like, "Oh, I was a housewife." It's like, you weren't.
But you weren't.
No, unless I've misread that. So it's just stuff like that that just seems very odd. Yeah, and all that stuff about naming a companion Petrol. What was that about? Well, I was watching Unleashed and my jaw dropped. I was just like, what am I watching? What is
taking
this?
petrol.
I thought I was when I was watching it. I can stay for another minute. I'm interested in what you're going to say now, Richard.
Well, it was a nice segue. There've been a few interesting things like that, which I don't know how active people are on social and stuff these days, but like that places like Twitter have kind of picked up and like made memes of. The other one, which I've been meaning to mention since it happened. So after Lucky Day was on, and obviously Ruby gets her boyfriend, but then it doesn't go the right way, and she ends up still single by the end of the story. There's someone else that Twitter basically or the internet decided that Ruby should get with instead, a previous companion. Can anyone?
Oh,
guess?
Ryan,
I'm
yeah.
assuming-
Ryan Sinclair.
Yeah.
Don't you
And it
dare.
Yeah, where did that come from?
Because the ship name is then Sunclair.
I think what happened.
Oh,
was it
I
a
thought you
Doctor
said
Who
that
Poop
line.
video?
Oh,
There was
Doctor
a-
Who Poop, wasn't it?
There was a
Yes.
video
Two of them
Doctor
having
Who
their
pooped
date.
of a date.
Yes.
Because
And
there's
then
that
people
POV
jumped
stuff
on it.
in Lucky Day, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you have her saying, "Oh, like whatever, it's Conrad," and then he's there.
Can't ride a bike.
Oh, so today I met the greatest woman I ever met, and it's Ruby. And yeah, so that was quite. I think it's kind of died down a bit now, but it's been very funny seeing the memes from that and other things across the series, like that as
Dugadoo.
well. Oh, Dugadoo was the obvious one.
Dugadoo.
Yeah.
Is that live stream still going?
Yeah, apparently so.
don't know.
Apparently
Is it?
so.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, if you
Ben-
watch it in
Ben
slow
played
motion,
it to me before we
it's
started the
cursed.
podcast. Yeah. It's hellish.
Well,
Has anyone
that's-
seen this? Someone did a great video of Dugadoo and they incorporated Dugadoo into the Doctor's timeline. And it's like a great 3D render. And it's like in Keys of Marinus being pushed out of the window with a Vord. And it's insanely good. I will send you it all
Oh,
after
please
this
do.
finishes.
Yeah.
It's
That
That
brilliant.
should have been the finale. That would have been genuinely
Instead
silly.
of-
Dugadoo.
Instead of Anita going back through all the previous stories, should have been Dugadoo behind that door, and then
Yeah.
Fixes
And then it
reality.
revealed.
It's
No
a real
explanation.
story arc. Yeah.
First
There
thing
we
I've
go.
got to say in response to that is the Conrad thing. I did say he wasn't very memorable. I was being a bit hyperbolic there. I thought that actually his confrontation with Ruby at the end was very strong. I really liked that. You
Yeah.
thought it was going to go one way, where
Well, I
she was
think
going to take all
I
of it
think
out
Russell
on him.
had said, "Oh, like her greatest scene ever is coming up, Millie's," and I'm guessing that's what
Right.
it was. Where
was it.
yeah, because it doesn't go the way you think, does it? She's there with the
Yeah.
Project Indigo backpack on her back,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and it's like
Project Indigo, Zero
Yeah, it
Room,
just
and
takes you by
Galvanic
complete
Beam,
surprise.
all in like one
Yeah.
scene.
And it made me laugh that the
Probably
galvanic
more as
beam
well.
that literally killed the 14th Doctor just does
Yeah.
nothing to the bone beast.
Imagine if it hit
I really-
15 as he was flying past on the Rani's bike.
Oh no!
Not
again.
not again. Yeah.
Splits off into two. Billy Piper falling off into London.
Yeah, I liked that scene with Ruby
Yeah.
and Conrad at the end. I thought that was good, and I thought Conrad actually got probably a better send off than the Rani did. You know,
Oh yeah, he didn't get eaten, so.
I
So-
still think I know that people said that they felt the Rani was wasted here, but I mean, for one thing, I think that finales always don't suffer, but they've always got to deal with the villain and then deal with the aftermath. There's always got to be time set aside, and it'll always feel like, oh, they were dealt with halfway through. But we've had them for the whole of part one, and it was still a good 30-40 minutes before the Rani was taken out of the mix in
Yeah,
this one.
I do agree with that. Actually, I think that it's somewhat inevitable. We got a lot of her of Archie. Obviously, we got a little bit more of Anita Dobson
yeah.
afterwards with that immortal line about the two Ronnies, and it's a good night from me.
Which I
Fantastic.
can't believe I didn't get. I knew the reference to "It's Good Night from Me," but I didn't realise the pun of the two Ranis, the two Ronnies. It's
Oh, yes.
so obvious now.
But no, I think it kind of when that happened, that moment, it's like, oh my god, like is he going to eat it? Eat her? It's like when he grabs her.
Yeah.
So that there was kind of the shock of that, which worked for me, and then there's a kind of a bit afterwards where you're like, oh, it's a shame that we're not going to see her again in this episode at least. But I think she got some good stuff to do. I mean, we were saying beforehand, I think that scene in Unit where she comes in and obviously she's not in that scene for the whole of the scene, but like the scene as a whole goes on for I think like 7 minutes or something we were saying, and it feels like quite theatrical, and the way it's all laid out as well, literally with her at the front of the stage with the doctor and everyone kind of watching, you know, Anita through the door and stuff, and they're kind of like having it out in front of all these people with this audience. It kind of felt like we got some good stuff from her, and
She was fantastic. I think obviously Anita Dobson is
she was
fantastic, and
relishing
we'll
it,
probably
wasn't
see
she,
more
I
of
think,
her.
really, yeah.
But Archie Punjabi was just
loved it.
fantastic. I think the Rani was characterized really well. And all right, maybe we didn't need characters sort of explaining who she is because there was enough there to kind of illustrate that. You know, I think her character was perfectly brought back, little updates here and there. But yeah, I thought the Rani was served really well. And we've obviously got a little in to bring her back later down the line. And this always happens with the Rani, the Master, the meddling monk. They look like they've been killed off, and then they always find a way to come back. And that never, it's never bothered us in the past. And I'm sure Doctor Who fans won't get bothered by it ever again.
The one thing it unfortunately screams is I don't think it was affected by the rewrites, her conclusion. I think she was always going to get eaten. I feel
Yeah.
that there's a scene missing with Mel because it feels like at the beginning that's going somewhere where she has that really cringy bit where she goes, this is the Rani, she's evil and twisted and all this. But it feels like there should be a second fold to that scene where her and Mel have that final confrontation, and that's how the Rani's dealt with.
Yeah, interesting.
I do think the biggest criminality of like all of this reshoot is Yasmin Finney just disappears halfway through the episode.
Yeah, she had nothing to do.
She gets the initial hug where it's like, it's good. Comrade couldn't even imagine a world with you in because you're that amazing. Where I actually think, because Comrade is such a dickhead, I think it would be nicer if 15 turned around and went, he wanted you deleted from this world, but you're back. You know what I mean? And then Russell should have given her something to do. Either have her in the episode and do something constructive with her, or just don't have her at all, because you need to have that correct level of representation. And I personally feel she didn't get given enough to do. And I'm quite offended.
Agree. I think it was worse that she was there because she just stood around doing nothing. And it felt like literally every appearance since the Starbeast. And I really liked Rose in the Starbeast. But every appearance since then, her character's just been more and more watered down. And yeah, I don't know what was going on there. Maybe there was more stuff that was shot as well. But she doesn't even appear in that final scene in Unit HQ. She's just completely...
That's what makes it confusing, because it does feel like that almost makes things a bit more transparent when you've got a character who was there who's now longer not there, and it's not even addressed.
Like, I understand logistically, I bet when they got to this, because the reshoots happened, I don't know when the filming for season 2 wrapped. It was sometime last year.
Was it October? Year, like end of May. No,
end of May.
Ages ago.
So, and like the reshoots were definitely February, March, because we worked out that's where Jodie scene's from, which is why it's so confined to one set. But I think that's my biggest problem with this episode is it should have just ended with, Poppy's gone. They've had the really lovely scene of the folding up of the jacket, as Josh has previously mentioned. They've had that heartbreaking moment. And maybe the end of it should have been, they should have just found a better way to write his regeneration. Like, he tries to bring her back. He accepts that he's failed at doing it. And then he regenerates. I know it would have been quite a somber no, but the Poppy stuff is just so confusing. And you're just like, yeah, can we get to the regeneration now?
Yeah. I think that the intent of why he regenerated to save a life, I really liked. I like the sort of twist that actually he brings it back and it's no longer his child as well.
Yes.
But I feel like
bittersweet.
I feel underwhelmed because I think there was a lot that was promised, like with Susan, and then that never got followed up. And looking at Shooty Zero as a whole now, as a complete package, because that's what it is now. It's a full run of 2 seasons. It's so steeped in references to the past. I think that he was I think that Nshuti's Doctor was constantly sort of overshadowed by older stuff. A lot of things haven't been wrapped up, and I feel like, especially because Nshuti's so good in the role, yeah, I think that it just feels really deflating to know that he's been taken away from us so quickly because he was genuinely really, really good, and I was kind of hoping he would be able to get like a series where he's able to sort of stand on his own 2 feet, I guess, a bit more and not be like, this is a monster from the past. This is whatever, his own adversaries that are like Doctor defining. I really loved Story in the Engine. I think that was a Doctor defining moment for him. And I really liked Insert Song Contest when he had that sort of, I've got this streak of ice in my heart. But now we know that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, he didn't
Um,
do
I,
anything
I
with
I
it.
think that it's a real shame because this Doctor, he was really getting into his peak in season 2, and it's a real shame it's just been cut off at the perfect moment. I loved his performance and I love shooting the role, so I'm glad that I'm feeling upset that he's gone. It's just a shame that he is gone because I think that Shooty was really good as the 15th Doctor, and I wish we had more of him.
And I think we always feel that at the end of a doctor's tenure, we always have that moment of, oh, they just were starting to get them right, or that was
Mm.
their best, that, and they'd found their footing. Um, it's a kind of a trend, really, isn't it?
To quote Davison, it feels different this time because we didn't know that it was happening. It
Mm.
Yeah.
wasn't announced that Shooty was going, and I
Yeah.
That
think
might
that was
be
a misstep.
an interesting thing to talk about. Yeah, do we think was that the right choice or
They should
not?
have
'Cause
announced it.
I don't think
you see,
so.
Not
I
who's next.
I've kind of considered both sides. I suppose the difficulty is, and because it was all a bit last minute maybe, but like
Mm.
it would have overshadowed probably other stuff in the season. Like you want an episode like the Story in the Engine to go out without all the spin in the media and stuff being, oh, like it's like his third to last adventure or whatever, or the Insta Song Contest as well. I
This is
think,
penultimate story.
yeah, I think that was a tricky thing to navigate. I think ultimately, yeah, fans probably would have preferred to know just to be able to like prepare and stuff. And you could still have
Mm,
kept the identity of Billy or the next Doctor or whatever she is secret.
mhm.
But I recognise, yeah, there are kind of complications there, and I guess the more if they talked about that more as well, it kind of would have overshadowed because people would have speculated, well, more than they have already about what's happened, and then yeah, because I suppose for Eccleston they kind of wanted to keep that secret, didn't they? Back in with series one,
They
and
just
weren't
leaked,
able
didn't
to
it?
all
When
the
Rose
way.
went out.
They kept it a secret a few weeks, and then yeah, but or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Any strong thoughts on that, or was it the
I
right
think I
choice?
think I can see now that you've just laid that out.
Mm,
I can see why they did it, and I think that even though perhaps for the final one it might have been nice to know going in,
15
um,
Doctor's final adventure or something.
yeah, I think that it made it was in favor of the other episodes in the series to kind of let them stand on their own in their own right and not
yeah.
have that kind of thing of
Mm.
this is the feeling of a countdown to the end. They are just we just were able to appreciate those stories in their own right as adventures, and I think it would have been obviously too rushed to be like to get to the finale and then suddenly be like, by the way, Shooty's leaving. So I can see why they did it, and I think for the benefit of the season, I think they made the right call in holding back. I know that circumstances kind of
Mm.
forced their hand maybe in some ways.
I disagree. I think that there was already a countdown to the end, because we didn't know, and we still don't know what's next for the show. So I think there was always that feeling of we gotta see how much we've got of Doctor Who left and just
Yeah.
savor it as much as we can because we don't know how long it's going to be until we get a next season. I think that it was a misstep, and I think the idea of having a surprise regeneration in theory is good, but I think, like Richard said, it should have been announced maybe that Shooty was leaving. Keep the Billy Piper thing quiet, leave that as a surprise for the night. But I think going into it, it would have been better to know because it just it made it feel even more tacked on. And I think rewatching it, it won't feel as tacked on knowing it. And also, I don't think they know how to report on it now because they didn't up until that point say that Ncuti was leaving. All of the press and the media was completely quiet, and now the episode came out and it was just Ncuti's gone, rather than what it normally is, which is all about the next Doctor. And so now all of the news outlets are saying about Ncuti leaving, and the whole thing with Billy Piper is basically gone under the radar, which makes me think even more. Um, I really wish it just faded to black. I don't think
Yeah.
the Billy Piper part was needed. I think it yeah, I just don't think it looks good for Ncuti to be between David Tennant and Billy Piper. I think the optics of that just I wish it just sort of that was that moment, and then we can bring it back with Billy Piper later. But that's such a quick shot as well, and you can see she's comped onto his body anyway.
Yeah, because it's his
Um,
neck, isn't it? It's all
yeah,
of this bit
it
of,
didn't
and
even
it just
look.
looks wrong.
It has got people talking, though. I mean, I've had people, non-fans,
Mm.
sort of chatting to me about it, and I know that's kind of what they're aiming for.
Mm,
I suppose you want promotion for the show at the end of the day. But it has got people. So I have seen a few like Instagram posts and news stories and speculation, and the comments often are more people kind of speculating and getting excited than it is people bashing the decision,
mm,
which is really nice. I think that it's maybe it is just a fan thing because from a fan perspective, they know the context and they kind of know how David Tennant's been recently, and then it's Billy Piper. But from an external point of view, that's not really in the mindset.
I agree. It's definitely generated a wave of content. And even like if you go on places like TikTok now, you've got people coming out
Yeah.
of the crux who haven't talked about Doctor Who before, and they're sat there like,
Sure.
oh my gosh, Billy, like literally the regeneration, people's reaction of them screaming in their home have gone viral.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
The
worked.
cinema clip
It,
as well,
yeah.
that they released.
mhm.
It's worked in terms of marketing, it's worked in terms of getting people on board for this new Billy Piper era. But I'm sorry, I just feel that should have been for the Shooty Gatwa era, not her. Like they should have done something as viral as this when they got him on board. I'm not opposed to her being the Doctor. I just think, as Josh says, to have two RTD1 bookends to such a fantastic, mesmerizing actor. He holds his own so well. And
Mhm.
then it feels like he's been undermined in both senses. And like as much as I
Absolutely.
love as much as I love the Jodie scene, one thing I will say, please can we stop having Doctor regeneration stories with other doctors showing up? Like twice upon a time, he has the first
Yeah.
Doctor to let go, then 13th Doctor has the edge,
Guardians of the
then the
Edge.
14th
Yeah.
Doctor literally splits into him, and then you've got the 13th Doctor. It was lovely. It was a really cathartic scene, but it just feels wrong. And I think that's why Regeneration has lost its touch, is it doesn't feel like a proper goodbye. It was nice, I will admit, and I think you mentioned this on the Knowing Who podcast, Miles, because I think Billy Garrett John mentioned it. It was like finally handing over the TARDIS keys properly from one
From
era
actor
to the
to
other.
actor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it was
Yeah.
really lovely for her because I don't think Jodie got her regeneration. But I agree with Josh. It's like I can see the midpoint where the optics of this are just strange and where we go
Mm.
from here. But it wasn't the
Yeah.
worst part of the episode. The worst part of the episode is when Omega slogged out. It wasn't Peter Davison or it wasn't a big skeletal
Nick
Peter
Briggs.
Davison. It was Nick Briggs. That was the worst part. And then when he steps back and he goes, if only I had a weapon, and then he turns the Vindicator into a blinking gun. Right, the
Yeah.
Doctor does not use guns. The
There we
10th
go.
Doctor held a gun, right? And it was so out of character. He points it at Rassel and he has that brilliant point in the end of time where he points at the Master. Then he finally shoots the diamond, the white point star that breaks the link. Brilliant. The 11th Doctor uses a gun. He uses it to smash the gravity globe and you get that really good twist. But this, For a doctor, he has gone on record to say, and people have said it's a made-up quote, no, it isn't, because I think it's actually in a magazine. For him to say, oh, I redesigned the sonic screwdriver not to look like a gun, even though the handle twists into a gun handle compared to the others, and then to have him actually use a gun in the final episode. Russell, what are you smoking?
It is an interesting move. You do
Yeah.
wonder.
I guess you could say that's the culmination of his arc from Interstellar Song Contest of him going
So
darker.
the ice in his heart.
Yeah, the ice in his heart. He's just out for vengeance. I didn't like that either. Specifically that he outright calls it a weapon. If only I had a weapon. Again, it's just one of those things a bit like with Interstellar Song Contest where it just doesn't seem right.
It goes a bit too dark.
It kind of felt like, I mean, I didn't mind it, actually. I kind of vibed with it in the sense that, just go with it. Like, and because the Vindicator's been there all the way through, and they set up the thing about it being linked to a billion supernovas or whatever it is. If you're going to have a MacGuffin to get rid of Omega, it might as well be that, and the way it was blocked as well, like with him bumping into it. Like, it was an Eccleston kind of London Eye moment, where it's like behind him. But I do get that, though. It's a bit goofy. It's a bit like,
You know what? Solve it. It's a Vindicator. It's a Vortex indicator. If it was just, okay, it would have been knockoff Next Doctor. If it had just banished Omega to the Time Vortex, okay, Sutek went out that way. Like, I love that dark bit where the Doctor inadvertently kills Sutek by dragging him through the Vortex, even though it is a bit cringy and a bit Scooby-Doo having him fly about. But if it had just, like, banished Omega to the Time Vortex and it was left open-ended, okay, maybe he can come back, maybe he doesn't, and you just saw, like, a vortex effect, it wouldn't then necessarily be the Doctor directly killing, because that's where I draw the issue, is that it seems with intent the Doctor is killing, where in the Sutek example, yeah, he shuts the doors to the TARDIS, but it's not him directly killing Sutek, it's the elements, you know what I mean? So it's not...
To be fair, I didn't get the impression that he did kill Omega. I thought he just sort of
doesn't he just go
pushed him back
inside
into the
cupboard or whatever?
and closed the door. Right,
I
and
mean, if
still
he's
alive.
not dead after a headshot, then I don't want to know this show.
Well, I mean, he didn't have a head in his original story, because he takes
true.
his head off, doesn't he? So I don't know what's going on there. Before we wrap up, I know we've kind of discussed loads of stuff here, and there's probably some stuff that's still been left, but I wanted to touch on two women, Jodie, the Doctor, and Susan as well, who we have touched on a little bit already. With the 30th Doctor scene, I just wanted to say that it's great to see her, obviously, and it's great to see the fan reaction to it. I have seen some people sort of saying, she was written better in that than in her era, or she was better in that scene than she was in her era. Personally speaking,
That's unfair.
Now it's my turn to get on the
She was exactly the same. She was
exactly the same. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what nonsense. So obviously each to their own, but I will.
And I was really glad to see it again, because I mentioned to you guys that I rewatched Arachnids in the UK the other week.
Oh yeah.
And so I had the 13th Doctor kind of fresh in my mind, and to see her again, I was like, yeah, I've actually really missed you. So I really like that scene.
No.
And yeah, she was written exactly the same. She's always been that good.
I do admit it kind of felt a bit random, but I suppose if they were doing the reshoots, Russell probably wanted to do something a bit special, and maybe had a bit of money lying around or something, and they're like, let's get Jodie in. I mean, Joe, you've talked about how Jodie has since said in interviews and stuff that kind of talked about the negative reaction or whatever, and how that got to her or whatever. So I guess it's just a nice thing all around that she was able to kind of come back and for it to go down nicely and treated nicely and all that kind of stuff. And with the Susan thing, yeah, I don't want to get negative about that, but it's difficult. I guess she was probably a casualty of the reshoots. I know there are some things that have been going around about how she may have been integrated into those final scenes. I think it's such a shame, and I know the circumstances can't have really been helped there, but it is just a bit of an insult to her, really. I kind of wish... Well, I don't know. Do I wish that they hadn't included the bits of her beforehand? I probably wouldn't go that far, because it was great to see her again in any form, shape or form. But I think that's one of the most egregious things, because I'm only assuming that if she had carried on, they would have had her in season 3, or maybe even like a Christmas special for this year. She could have been like the Christmas companion almost, which would have been really nice.
But oh my gosh, the worst offender in this episode for lines. Oh, Doctor, I think we're all your children. That landed so badly. Like, I was just sat there like, there's no way they have just said that. It was a bit like, you know, the really sweet Sarah Jane line at the end of Journey's End where she's like, you act like such a lonely man, but you've got the biggest family on earth. That was really lovely and really eloquently put. But this just went down like a shit of bricks. It was just like, what on earth is that?
I don't know if it was necessarily a bad line. I think that it was interesting the way they mixed that moment, because they had a very loud music cue following it, which I think is what throws people off. Because
that reminds me of something as well, actually. Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
Is this
we were going to wrap up, but no,
The reuse.
there was
The
reuse in this story. Again, not to be negative, but like I think the most egregious example was that
12's death.
12th
when
Doctor.
he's like,
I wish there was stars or whatever it is.
Oh, I thought that.
I thought there'd be stars when that started playing. I think in the TARDIS
Poppy?
scene, and I was literally like, oh, I know that music. I
Where's it
know
from?
these teeth. Yeah, I literally in my head in the cinema, I was like, oh, like what's going on here? Again, circumstances okay to an extent. I think Murray's even had like appendicitis or something recently. I think someone has said in an interview. So it's like, okay, fair enough to an extent. But I do think it feeds into a wider thing in this season where there's been a lot of reuse. Some weird stuff like the Amy's theme thing in Lux, and not even like just reusing themes, but reusing exact tracks. Like that unit theme, the bit that's like the Shepherd's Boy from, or whatever it is, from the Giggle. They play it in Lucky Day for that grand entrance, and they play it again here, I think, when Mel rides in. But yeah, no, I think with the music, and then with the Joy to the World reuse at the end for the regeneration scene, and obviously they kind of borrow more than just the music there, the whole iconography. Is that meant to be Joy in the distance? Like that's stuff?
Yeah,
that's yeah.
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah, which is an interesting choice as well. Although it kind of, I don't know, it's somewhat circular, isn't it? Like bringing things full circle. But
I think there's a
religion.
problem with reusing the music, especially with the regeneration, because that's
there is a precedent for that, like with the long song.
Apart from Valley, the theme for the Tenant regeneration, the long song was the regeneration music for Matt Smith. Capaldi, you had the Shepherd's Boy. So there's nothing really to, and then it was a redone
Jodie
version
had a
of Doctor's
theme.
It was a new track though. It was a new track for her, and like for Eccleston as well. I wish, I suppose, that it had a bit more of a musical identity of its own almost. I know, and we've said it a lot across the series of reviews as well. Like casual viewers don't necessarily know. Well, they're not gonna have a clue. Like if something's been in an episode 5 years ago or whatever. But that's the thing. Like, I wish it had that kind of fresh identity, and it felt like it was its own thing almost. So, yeah.
I wasn't expecting it, to be fair.
Forward.
And in fact, I'll be real with you. It is almost with. I remember with the Capaldi regeneration Twice Upon a Time, thinking, I wonder what music they are going to use, because the precedent had already been set with Matt Smith that it was a reused track, and thinking, oh, it's got to be the music when From Heaven Sent, because that was his defining moment as the Doctor, and it was. So I don't mind that. I think it's almost nice to have a reprise in a way of like specific moment of Doctor's tenure as they leave.
And wasn't it tweaks at the end? Because at the end of the track, don't they add the 15th Doctor's
which
as the face disappears?
That was a saving grace. And yeah, to end on a positive note, that whole rant, that was great, because it put me in mind.
I mean, it's a heart thumping moment when that happens, though, right? And it's sort of building and building, and then there's Billy. And I mean, you get swept away in it, surely.
It is an exciting,
that's how I feel.
Exciting moment. But it put me in mind again of like the end of The Church on Ruby Road, where there's a very similar thing where like he says, I'm the Doctor, and then the da-da-da-da bit comes in and crashes into the titles. And I thought both times, that time and this time as well, they worked really nicely. So yeah, I'll give you that, Murray, but just please stop reusing tracks.
It feels really full circle, but my main problem is with it is like the way the regeneration looks, because you've got Joy as the Star of Bethlehem in the far corner. You've got him with his arms out like Jesus on the cross.
Yes.
It just stop making the Doctor Space Jesus. He's just a bloke that goes around traveling in time and space and having a laugh and saving people. He isn't this Jesus figure.
I don't know if that was the. I think the point was that it was kind of the joy motif that was coming back. The star is joy. The Doctor says that it's been an absolute joy. He spreads joy across the universe. It's that kind of the happy outlook. I think that's what they were going for more than the religious imagery in that moment.
Yeah, because I thought like he was more like kind of. It was like an angel kind of, and with the star imagery as well. There was I kind of noticed a bit. I
always thought it was going to be that he's a star in and of himself.
Yeah,
as he exploded. I thought they were going to do a whole, and there he's a star in the sky, and it, you know,
Big Bang 3 wipes out
the universe.
I mean, it's nice they've continued the trend, actually, isn't it, of having regenerations outside of the TARDIS as well. I think someone put side by side, like with Jodie, where she says, "I want to do this alone," and then he says this time, "I don't want to do this alone," and he goes out and it's that thing, isn't it? Like with both those Doctors, how they kind of, it's that thing of like joy and being part of the universe and at one with the universe and all that kind of stuff. Like at the end of Haunting of Villa Diodati, she was the universe. It's that kind of whole idea. So actually, I liked that, and as an image, I wasn't offended by it personally. Although I see what you're saying, Joe, but there are kind of, you can kind of draw parallels there, definitely, like back to like Last of the Time Lords when he's there at the end of that story,
like floating about, just being like,
it's a recurring
one thing you can't do is stop them thinking, or whatever he says. Before he literally turns into Jesus. I don't know. They should have just cut to black though, like, because if this is the final image we get of Doctor Who, which is quite possible.
Oh, it definitely won't be the final. There's no way.
I think it will be the final image we get for a while though.
Potentially, but you know. Shooty, we were sort of concerned with the fact that Shooty was in the theatre run, therefore we wouldn't get a Christmas special because there wouldn't be time. But
that's true, yeah.
It's Billy that they need now. So if they can secure Billy to make a special, depending on what their plans are, I think it's possible that we could get something sooner than we initially anticipated.
I wish it gets cancelled though, because this is going to be my last statement on the series. I think. As he says about Harriet Jones, don't you think she looks tired, but don't you think it looks... I think it just needs a few years off the air, and that is my final words on this series.
Okay.
And on that note, thank you everyone for watching. This has been a roundtable review.
Right.
You know what?
It has.
I think you're right in a way. I think the biggest thing is that it needs fresh blood. It needs new people writing it. And it needs like an Andrew Cartmel type figure, or even like someone who's just a young up and coming scriptwriter who's able to engage with younger viewers, like kids like nowadays and teenagers nowadays, because I don't think it's hitting that mark anymore. I think that the Doctor Who viewership is mainly people who are fans of the show, and it should always have mainstream appeal. I think that a symptom of that is constantly going back to David Tennant and Billy Piper and all these references. I think it should be as mainstream as possible. It used to be such a big part of pop culture, and it's still able to be. If it wasn't so self-referential all the time. I think it needs new blood, fresh ideas. I don't think it needs to be axed, maybe, but it just needs, a kick up the backside and do some new stuff and not look to the past so much and look to the future.
I kind of feel like I need to lie down after that. But
polarizing to say the least. You got two very good, extreme ends here.
Yeah. I mean, let us know in the comments, what you thought of this story, this season. I'm sure we will be back at some point. The roundtables will be back.
Give it 10 years.
Nah, we'll be back sooner than that. I think it'd be nice to do a wrap up for the whole season or for the whole era or just whatever. So yeah, definitely more to come, and then we'll all turn into Billy Piper. But yes, thanks for watching, everybody. Thank you, Miles, Joe, Josh, and Pete, and the recording in progress woman as well. I don't know if people know that's a running gag.
No, because you don't
Probably
hear
not.
her. I think you've
No.
edited it out. But leave this bit in.
They-
It's
they
the
can
meta
all-
bit.
they can all wonder
it's us
about that.
breaking the screen.
Yeah, if you use Zoom, you know.
You know
But yeah.
what? That would have been a much better ending if she was like, "It's been an absolute joy. Regenerates,
Hello.
lights up, and then recording in progress." And then that's how it ends. Da, 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 da.
Done.
Then it would have been a 10 out of 10 from me.
Well, look, it's been an absolute joy recording this review with you guys.
Oh, you too, man.
Lovely.
Well, there we go. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye,
Oh,
everyone.
hello.
Bye bye.
Oh,
Oh,
hello.
oh, hello.
Very good. Very good.
Veteran.